Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Black Atlantic. My name is Clinton, and as you can see, we have Hilary LeBlanc, aka Cropberry.
We are also joined by the team and some of the people who are educated through careers, education, and empowerment, an organization that we are so excited to learn more about today. So we've got Mike, Nancy, and Agape on, who we are going to be speaking to for the next little bit about this wonderful organization and some of what Black youth experience when they are trying to be employed.
So wherever and however you're taking us in, be that visually or on one of our audio podcasts, please make sure you hit that follow, subscribe button, like and comment, and everything you do really helps out the channel. Let's get into it.
Awesome. How's everybody doing today? Good, good, good.
Amazing.
Awesome. We're happy to have you all here. And I'll start off by saying this is one.
Sorry.
That's hilarious. Sorry. This is one of the rare episodes where we get approached by an organization and a group of people, and we get to learn more and be educated as we do our journalistic work. So I'm very excited. It's also an episode where we get to sort of inform some of our East Coast listeners about an organization out here in Toronto. But from what I saw in my research, you are like, there's an expansion. You've done more than just, some Toronto-based work. I saw some work in Quebec and Montreal as well. So we're so excited to learn more about CEE, careers, education, and empowerment. But to start, I was saying before the show, I do know a little bit about some of you. I know about you, Agape. You won a Harry Jerome Award, which I got to talk about a little bit, my experience going, and was very exciting. But you're the executive director of this organization. So I'm curious if you could start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this role and what this organization really does.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having us. This is very exciting. I personally, what got me into this industry is really a very similar program to the ones that we run at CEE. As a young person, I often say that now I have the privilege of being able to serve young people that I once was at one point. In my kind of life experience, my mother passed away at a very young age, at 14. And so I was a recipient of social services. I needed money to go to school and bus fare and all of those other things. And so navigating was always really tough for me, but I had some amazing people who worked at organizations like CEE. It wasn't CEE specifically, but ones that are in the social service sector that really supported me, one of those being United Way. And I entered into a leadership program at United Way that really led me into this career path and made me realize, oh, I could actually make a career out of helping people and doing what it was that I needed and how other people helped me. And so that's kind of how I ended up in this career path. And so I really believe in programs like the ones that we run here at CEE, because at CEE, what we really focus on is workforce development. So helping young people figure out where they see themselves contributing to the economy, what are their passions, what are their talents, how can they take that and fuel it into something. Usually when we're talking about youth employment, we're often just trying to get people in jobs and not necessarily careers. And oftentimes Black youth are told just like take whatever's in front of you because you should be happy to have a job. But I think the opportunity here is for us to create opportunities for people to create careers and things that they're passionate about and things that they're talented at. And that's what we do here at CEE.
Okay. That's an amazing description of what your organization does. Regarding Black youth employment, can you share some of the maybe interesting statistics that might shock our listeners, or even if it doesn't shock us, just what does Black youth employment look like right now?
So there are actually millions of jobs in Canada. We're often hearing our government talk about labor gaps and how we need to fill those labor gaps with immigrants and young folks. And so there are jobs in this country, but what we're seeing is that Black youth are actually an untapped resource that this country needs to start to tap into, because we have 2 times worse than the national average when it comes to unemployment. We're almost sitting at 30% in 2021 for Black youth unemployment in this country. And so it doesn't make sense, and it's not adding up for us to have so many jobs and for us to be training young people in industries that are sought after, but at the same time, our unemployment rate is not lowering. And so it seems like Black youth are overrepresented in all the wrong places, but we need to start honing in on their assets and what they have to offer this economy.
Without me making any guesses or assumptions, I mean, what are some of the theories, or what are some of the reasons that Black youth employment is so much higher than other groups? Unemployment.
Well, I think we have to face the fact that it's a hiring bias. There's really no other reason that we can really come up with. I mean, if you look at the statistics that of Black people in this country and our education, we actually are one of the highest educated populations in all of the country. So we're
Yeah.
overrepresented in all of the wrong places and overrepresented in all the right places, but they're not adding up, if that makes sense, right? Like if we're the most educated population, then why do we have such horrible outcomes when it comes to unemployment, right? And so I think it's an opportunity for us as Canadians and really realizing that it's not a Black problem, that when all of us are able to contribute meaningfully to society, that we all win as Canadians. But if I were to say what the number one issue is, it's clearly a hiring bias. And then I think the other two aspects are social capital, are young people being able to have the social capital, the people around them to be able to navigate. And the third I would probably say is exposure. There's a lot of jobs in this country that our young people just need to be exposed to. You know, if we're using Mike Regis as an example, there's a lot of jobs in the entertainment industry that, you know, are untapped. If you're looking at Nancy, she uses IT and social media. She kind of goes across IT and entertainment, right? And so there's a lot of jobs that are just in the hidden market for our community. If you don't see it around you, then you don't know to pursue it. And so exposure, social capital, and hiring bias are the three main reasons why we're seeing the outcomes we're seeing.
Okay.
I find that like unsurprising answers, and I also find that that can probably relate not only to our listeners that are Black, of color, visible minorities, but growing up in New Brunswick, you're offered about the same 5 jobs. It felt like in my world, it was like be a personal support worker because of the growing boomer industry, become a teacher, or work as an esthetician because you're a woman and you should be basically painting nails. And then you move to Toronto and you see like this booming entertainment industry is a perfect example of places that like I don't think as a kid I could have ever conceptualized, let's say, being a journalist or working in media or working in entertainment or anything like that until you move to a place where you have those examples around you. But as a kid who grew up as well, like in the system on welfare, it's not something that I could have dreamed for myself or seen. And so I like completely understand the value behind this organization already. As you mentioned, we do have Mike and Nancy here, and I do want to start to ask both of you. Mike, if you'd like to start, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to become engaged with CEE, and had you heard about it, or like how does your relationship start with this organization?
Well, it's always been an amazing relationship. My story is that I was in the film industry and I really came across a really bad incident when it came to actually hiring, and I had a really bad experience. So for 2 years, I decided to travel the world to tell my story. And C was there every step of the way. I saw the posts, I saw what they're doing for the community. But for some reason, as I was traveling the world, it was not working out. So I saw the C's production accounting program. So I decided to enroll in it because it's all about numbers. And that program changed my life. This We met with industry professionals, but also the core point was the soft skills. That was the first time I really got to sit with somebody to talk about my feelings and talk about what I was going through. And that is when it all changed. C's been incredible. You know, we're all on billboards now, and that's changed my life forever. It's absolutely awesome, the types of opportunities that are starting to really open up in my life. And it really took an organization like this. I've been overlooked so many times. You guys don't understand, so many times. But it took an organization to see the potential in me.
Wow.
That's amazing. I also really like that plan where it's seeing the potential in you. I think that should be a slogan. I don't know if you're also working in PR, but I think that someone needs to make that a shirt as well. Although you already have these very cool sweaters, which we'll get into later. But I think that that's an awesome slogan. But I can't imagine what that experience must have been like for you. So are you able to share with us a little bit of like the negative experience that CEE helped you, like supported you in, or is that something that like would be trauma mining you don't want to discuss? Or I'm just very curious.
Yeah, I'm open to talk about anything. You know, when I was in the C program, they really supported me at one of my lowest points. One of my best friends had a manic episode, and he was one of the most brightest, healthiest guys I've ever seen. And to walk down the street and see him talk to himself on the street, that was a really tough experience to deal with. What was amazing about the C program was I actually got to talk to somebody for the first time about that experience and to really get the help. And that really changed everything. I'm on a really good path right now. Really thank you to the organization.
I can hear the passion and the gratitude in your voice. The sincerity comes through really strong, Mike. I just want to say that. Um, so you graduated from the accounting program, and you've gone on to become a director and a producer of Outside Genre. Uh, can you tell us about that program and the process it took to get to where you are in your career now?
So social capital is really big. And what had
Yeah.
happened was I was, after the C program, I kept on making content and it got the attention of some people in the industry. So I decided to form Outsider Genre because I really believe in telling our stories. And I know that our stories one day will be told worldwide.
That's great. So it's outsider genre. I
Yeah,
apologize, sir.
it's all
Outsider
good, man.
genre. Okay, thank you for the correction.
It's all good.
Regarding social capital and stuff like that, just to jump back to Agape for a second. Yeah, like even myself growing up, I grew up in Toronto. I grew up in North York. I went to a good high school, and in my last year, yeah, they tried to talk to us about the different jobs out there, but that really connected with me too because there are so many jobs that without exposure to it, like you just don't know about it. Like there's thousands of jobs out there that I probably industries I probably could have got into, and I just didn't because there was no one really around me exposing me and showing like opening my mind to the wide variety of possibilities out there in society. So it's amazing that your organization does that. Haley, oh, do you want to move on to Nancy and get back to everyone else?
Well, I have a question before we jump to Nancy.
Sorry.
I'm just
Go
curious,
ahead.
and it might tie into another question that we were going to ask about like the growth of the organization. But I'm curious because I also work in the community health center world during the day, and it just seems to me that it wouldn't necessarily be obvious if I generalize from a white lens to add in that kind of like maybe I don't know if therapy is the right word, but talking through feelings and emotions and how that applies to some of the maybe disappointment you're getting in the job industry and then building up that self-esteem to get there. And it feels almost like it's like from an empathetic lens and maybe also a cultural lens as well. And I'm just curious how that got ingrained into the work, or if that was like from the start, we were adding these other sort of like mental health, emotional awareness components along with employment sector to really bridge those gaps.
Yeah, for sure. It's been foundational. It's been foundational to the organization, understanding that in order for us as Black individuals to bring our entire self to the work, there needs to be a reinstilled sense of pride. And I think there's three very distinct approaches that make us very different. We're not a job agency, even though we could look and feel that way. We really are fixated on these three foundational kind of approaches. Number one is a trauma-informed approach. By virtue of being Black in this country, you're dealing with trauma that other people are just not thinking about, not feeling. And that's going to be compounded by life experience by the time you show up at our door. And for us, it's also about, for a lot of people, there's a potential, there's a talent, there is all of the ingredients for like success and greatness. But sometimes the biggest challenge we have at CEE at times is to undo the lie that's been told to our young people about them. And that kind of really ties into the campaign of who I really am. Like, we really want people to discover who they actually are, and have a a new sense of pride in their Black identity. So trauma-informed approach, we have full-time psychotherapists on staff so that people can unpack it. We all have trauma. It doesn't matter what color you are, you are in society. We are all dealing with some level of trauma. And until we start to unpack that and really start to discover for ourselves who we are, who we want to become, how we want to contribute to society, then we won't be able to bring our full self, right? So that's the first approach is a trauma-informed approach. The second approach is a person-centered approach. Understanding that there's not like a magic solution that all Black youth are going to come through our doors and like we're going to treat everyone the same and then we're going to have the same outcomes. No, everyone is coming from different backgrounds, different talents, different challenges that they might have faced. And we have full-time social workers on staff that work with our young people throughout while they're in program, and also just asking simple life questions like, okay, is this a career path that you see yourself in? Do you have small children? If you're entering into a career path that has shift work and you have very small children, then maybe this is not an ideal career path in this moment in time, depending on what your support system looks like. What's your food security? What's your housing look like? Supporting the young person while they're in program, but also as they enter into the workforce, that they can constantly come back and say, okay, I need help with this, or I'm having this challenge, right? Can you introduce me to this person? So our social workers are really there to help the young people as they're transitioning into the workplace while they're in program and then transitioning into the workforce. The third approach is a culturally relevant approach. And that's where this sense of pride comes in. Really having conversations about the soft skills and who you are in your Black identity, instilling a new sense of pride, because what often happens is workplaces want you to separate yourself from your Blackness and equate it to be something negative. But this is an opportunity for us to really instill a sense of pride in our young people. And we have modules, over 100 modules that provide soft skills curriculum to our young people that are centered in the Black identity. It doesn't matter if you're from the continent, if you're from the Caribbean, if you're from South America. What binds us all together is a Black identity and bringing pride back to that.
Wow.
I need to take one of those modules.
100 modules. Wow.
That's amazing. I think the funny part for me is that I think for me, part of the foundation of this podcast is rooted in the fact that I had no Black identity until I was 25, and I moved in with my Black side of my family because I was raised by my white mom. And so I think a lot of the crux of why I do any of the work I do is learning about all of that. And I find that so fascinating and interesting. And now I want to look into what these modules entail, just because I feel like I could use at least some of the 100.
Yeah.
Nancy.
Yes.
Oh, Nancy.
No, we were going to do the same thing.
Oh, perfect. Welcome again. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, no worries. So I'm a digital marketer, a Google product trainer, as well as a blogger. But most importantly, I'm a proud CEE alumni from the advanced tech program that I did for the 2019 cohort.
Okay.
Yeah. And through that experience, actually, I learned a lot, not only to my profession, but as personally, because they offered so many like other stuff that is outside the class itself. So we did have gained like a social worker who would check on us every week during the cohort, and we were able to talk and discuss our future plan and some of the stuff that we need. When I came to see, I just had an idea of like, okay, I have a blog that nobody visits it, but I want to be able to learn digital marketing so I can drive a lot of traffic to my blog. And then apart from that also is to learn how to tap into the industry, because I started doing my research that I knew that being in a tech industry, that's how the future was moving ahead. And especially there's not a lot of people that in my color that are in those spaces. And I want to be able to take spaces, and she gave me that opportunity by giving me the scholarship to go ahead and actually enter the program. And then from that program, I was able to secure a job right away within like a month of graduating. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Congrats.
I the more I'm learning about it, one, I like see the value, and also like, man, we need a tech person. I need more views on my blog. Like I need both of you to work for us. We're all trying to grow in this industry, but that's amazing.
Mike can do your content. Nancy can do your marketing. It's like the best duo, right?
I feel like it. Yeah, we got the team. We got the team here. The squad.
I wanted to ask, before we get into more of the history of CEE, we've referenced the Who Am I campaign, and I saw some of the sweaters and the billboards. So I'm curious about this campaign, and I think if I'm correct, does it tie into BlackYouthCan .org? And if you can tell us a little bit about what is on that website and what people might find there.
Yeah, so this is really Black Youth Can is a campaign, and the overarching campaign, and who I really am is really the message that we're trying to get across. And so you'll see across the city, Dundas Square, Union Station, we have 9 alumni, including Mike and Nancy, who are showcased telling their stories, who they really are, what they're really brilliant at, what they're doing, all of their accomplishments. You'll see the hoodies that they're wearing, all have their accomplishments on it, and all of the things that they've achieved over time. So it's literally like a resume on the hoodie. And we really, we partnered with Publicist Group. We've been working on this project for over 2 years. Their entire team kind of came together to help with the creative of this and the ad part of it. And it really is a homage to taking back the hoodie. Trevor Noah, who we have sent a hoodie over to. So I'm saying this on every interview. We're hoping that he's going to wear it. He's going to shout us out and he's going to like come visit. But it's taking back the hoodie. When folks see Black youth in the hoodie, there's always a negative connotation, and we're deciding that we're going to take it back. We're going to show people who we really are, that we're brilliant, that we have a lot to offer, and that young people are not the problem. Black youth are not the problem. They're actually the solution to a lot of the problems that this country is facing. And so this campaign is really an opportunity for us to tell all of Canada who our young people really are and what they can actually accomplish.
That's great.
So
I don't know if you can see this, Agapi, but yeah, go ahead, Hillary.
Yes, we see Mike looking very handsome.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to any of our non-audio listeners, you're able to see the campaign in Young Dundas Square and the alumni there, and the team in the sweaters, which is so amazing. So, Annie, before I read the website, I was like, so can we do we buy sweaters? I think it's a very, very cool campaign and a great way to support the organization. But I can't imagine, and I know Mike, you mentioned it briefly, the feeling, but Nancy, if you wanted to share, what is it like wearing a sweater that has all of your accolades on it? Because I'm hyping myself up with affirmation posties in the mirror and this 5-minute journal that all the influencers have me doing about my affirmations and why I should have woken up today. But how does that feel, being able to walk around showing the world what you were able to achieve with this organization?
Honestly, I'm gonna be quite honest. Being an entrepreneur and also trying to have a career, it's very hard. And sometimes you go through that a phase of doubting yourself. You're like, okay, am I really doing this? Should I be doing this and whatnot? But this hoodie is a reminder that every day I wear it, it's kind of shows me how far I have actually come. And all the stuff that I have accomplished is all over my sleeve and my bag. But it's also the in the box that I received, there was an affirmation that kind of tells me to the reborn of myself and the essence of what I have been accomplished. So every morning, if I wake up and I actually read that box and message that is there, it's kind of a constant reminder for me to be okay, you know what, you have done it and you're going to do it and you're going to achieve whatever that you're doing. And also through my blog itself, I initially thought, okay, maybe this is something that I'm just creating for myself. But after going to CEE and learning all the things that I need to learn, I have finally actually connected back with the people that are back home, because my parents are South Sudanese and I've never been there. But through the digital marketing, through that experience, I was able to create a blog and interview people that are actually born there and raised there. And then finally now, I have friends or family that I can talk to, and I get to talk to them virtually, how I'm talking to you here. And I feel like this just kind of learning digital marketing gave me the access to connect with people worldwide. But also now wearing this sleeve is a kind of reminder, you know what, this world is so small and it's very connected, and that our stories is going to inspire other people. So if there's kind of a young person who's back home, whether it's in Canada, and it's trying to be you know what, I want to be like Nancy. I want to be able to tap into the digital marketing. I want to be able to create my own blog or my own job. They can look at me and be you know what, if she did it, they could do it too. So this is just a reminder for myself, but also for those who are looking up to us.
That's amazing. Mike, I know you had mentioned briefly your feeling about the billboard and the sweater. Was there anything that you wanted to add as well to how empowering this process has been for you?
It's been incredibly empowering. And I'm really happy that CEE out of every organization gets this opportunity, because the work they're doing for the community is genuine and it's real. And one thing I really appreciate about this organization is that anybody can walk through those doors and you'll be treated like your family because you are.
That's amazing. And that kind of leads to the next question I have, and it's a kind of a multifaceted question. But if you could tell me and us and our listeners, so how are people brought to CEE? Like, is there outreach? Do you go to schools and talk to people? Do they have to find you on the internet? And on top of that, like, how far is it the whole Greater Toronto area? Where does your network operate? How many people are in it currently, and how many people have gone through the program? I know that's a lot of questions all at once. You guys can break that up.
Yeah. So our program, so we have over 1,000 young people who have graduated through our programs.
Wow.
We've been around for 10 years this year. We just celebrated our 10th year anniversary. We have an 85% retention rate across that 10 years, which means 85% of the young people who come through our doors and train with us end up in jobs that we've trained in the industry that we've trained them in. And so that is like no easy feat. But one of the things that I say, and much to what Mike just alluded to, like when you come through CEE's doors, you are family. We always say, once a part of CEE, always a part of CEE. And so it's not a program that you're going to go through it and then we're like, okay, see you later, good luck, let us know how it goes. You're part of a network, and there's a sense of responsibility that I think people have when they graduate to then come back and nurture the next folks who are in the programs that they might have been in. And I think that sense of community and camaraderie is what contributes to our ability to outreach. A lot of people here that come through CEE are through word of mouth. They come through the ability from other alumni. But of course we do outreach, but for the most part, it's word of mouth and people who have come through our programs. And usually we often say that when a young person goes back into their community and they're transformed and they maybe were trying to find their way and now have like a gainful, really meaningful career, people in their community see that and they're like, how did you get that? Where did you get access to that? Oh, it was CEE. And then that kind of word of mouth continues. We do currently do programming in the GTHA area. We have expanded to Montreal, and our hope is to end up in Halifax, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal. And the reason for those specific cities is we find that there are very large populations of Black youth, and the unemployment rates there are very high. And so we want to be able to do what we've done here in Toronto. We want to be able to bring that, but we don't want to do it in the traditional way where we just like go and plant ourselves in another city that we have no historical, context or knowledge in. Every community is different. The experience of Black Canadians across the country is very different, particularly for young people. And so we have in our organization what we call sector leadership, and we support over 100 grassroots and emerging organizations across the country. And we want to be able to equip them with our model and not necessarily show up in that community, but we want to build the capacity of emerging and grassroots organizations that are connected to community. They know the needs of their communities, but maybe just need the infrastructure and the model that we have here at CEE to kind of be handed over to them and build their capacity. And so we do that through our sector leadership.
That's incredible. And if there's ever any Halifax connections that we can help, if at all, I assume that you're highly connected through the BBPA and the BBI, but just in case there's ever, any support that we could do as a East Coast podcast, of course, we'd love to connect you with people. I can think of people who would be great leaders in Halifax that we happen to know that would probably champion this quite well. And I'm curious, you mentioned the 10 years of the organization, and I'm sort of curious in terms of like once someone is comes to the organization or is, the outreach, however they end up there, how long is the process before they sort of graduate, and what does that look like in terms of like, it's because I'm thinking of it almost like, if you've got that trauma informed, you've got those three sort of the steps and then these modules. Is it like a several weeks long process? Is it years until you're sort of partnered with a job and then you can come back, or what?
It really depends on the actual program. Some of our programs are 6 months, and some of our programs are 6 weeks. Oh,
Okay, amazing.
Okay. What are some of the challenges that you faced throughout your 10 years of existing?
what are some of our challenges? Okay, I think the first challenge
Sounds like
with
it's going to be juicy.
leading a Black-led and Black service. Yeah. I think the first challenge with a Black-led organization is really just the fact that you're going to always get people saying, well, why Black youth and not everyone? And that's probably the biggest challenge, particularly when you're fundraising and people are more interested in like helping the masses. That definitely can be challenging. And I think the other challenge that comes across a lot of the time is just exactly what the campaign is about. Like convincing employers and corporate Canada that Black youth, like creating a talent pool of Black youth, is going to enhance your workforce. It's not going to look like you're, favoritism to a particular population. It's really just recognizing that this is a talent pool that has been untapped across the country and that you want to foster that, invest in it. And I think the other piece to it is a lot of employers, particularly in corporate Canada, think that engaging or partnering is just putting a flag in the middle of a community and saying, hey, we're hiring, like, come on, everyone, like, apply. And there's no historical relationship with these communities. There's no understanding of, what it takes to enter into that field. And so I think there needs to be an understanding or an educating of folks to know that part of engaging with Black communities is providing resources and building relationship first and foremost, which means going in there and, building partnerships with like an organization like ours to say, hey, we want to be able to provide this for your community. How do we go about that? What is a methodical, strategic way of doing that, rather than just kind of throwing it out in the air? Hey, we're hiring. Oh, no one applied. Well, we tried.
Yeah,
I'm,
go ahead.
Go ahead. You go
No,
ahead, Glenn.
please. No, you go.
I'm curious, and maybe you said it or it's listed somewhere, but I've missed it. But I'm curious: have there been like job, or because you mentioned you're not like a recruitment job place, you're not doing that, you're more so building the person. But are there employers or organizations that have said like that they would like to partner and automatically take people who graduate from specific programs based on their needs at all? Just out of my own curiosity. Oh, let me see. Agape, did you hear my question?
I'm not sure if she did, so
In the
I'll
chat,
send her a private message in the chat, and but
No
while we're
worries.
waiting on
Oh, for sure.
that,
All of our programs have really strong corporate partners. If we use our VFX program as an example, Spin VFX, there's a lot of organizations that have come alongside us. And so, can you not hear me?
We can't. I'm guessing the lag is really bad.
we can hear you, but
Can you
I
hear
think
me?
there's a bit of a lag. We can hear you. Yeah. Well, hopefully that lag will fix itself in a little bit. In the meantime, Mike and Nancy, I've got a couple of questions for you. I'll go back and start with Mike. What are your goals with outsider genre moving forward? And if there's just any more elaboration you want to go into it, like what you do for the organization specifically and stuff like that, I'd love to hear more about that. And then Nancy, I think we've got a couple more questions for you too.
So the goal for this is to grow this into an international media company.
Right.
Right now, based on the campaign and based on what I was doing, we got attention from a really, really successful media company in town. And what's so interesting about that media company is that a person that works for CEE used to work for the company that the previous founder started. So it's all in the same. And she told me to go there. And that goes to show that with people who are committed to this work and people are committed to diversity and inclusion are always being there. That's the goal for it. Right now, I'm building a lot of relationships internationally, and I would love to have a project with fellow C alumni shown internationally one day.
That'd be amazing, and that is a good example of the interconnectedness of the organization and how you bond together and you have that shared connection in everything you do. How big is the team there? Is it just a couple of you? Is it a larger organization?
Well, we're starting. It's a hybrid. It's a hybrid social enterprise, and she's our trustee.
Yes.
And
Okay.
currently, we have 20 people, but
Wow.
they're all
Wow.
it's through a partnership with Ripen, so students,
Sure. No,
but
still.
currently it's 20. Yeah.
And before you went into C, did you have the skill sets? Or I'm sure you always had like an entrepreneurial mindset, but did you have the skill sets, the knowledge, the know-how, the connections, the drive maybe to ever launch anything like this?
Honestly, the confidence wasn't there, I'd be quite honest with you.
Hmm.
But after the program, the confidence was there to really start something. And what's amazing is that what C has done with this campaign just confirms that it really is possible.
Okay, so you had the skill sets, but maybe confidence can be 50% of the venture in a lot of these things,
Really
right? Like
true.
you say, just starting is literally 50% of it in a lot of examples. So it gave you the feeling that you could accomplish and achieve what you wanted to do.
Exactly.
Is that what you're
And
saying?
yeah,
That's
it
great.
really did. And now it's crazy when you're on a billboard, people treat you so differently, and the opportunities have really opened up. So I'm really happy for the whole community because this is a great moment, and this moment will last a lifetime.
For sure.
Nancy, I want to ask you because I
For
am
sure.
curious. You mentioned the blog
Yeah.
and wanting to drive traffic to the blog. And I'm curious, did it have anything to do? Because now you're in digital marketing. Now I assume you're trying to grow traffic and numbers for other people. You mentioned the growth of tech, which is something I hear consistently in Toronto as well. I think it's what we're hearing across the board. But what was the blog about? And what is your passion? Like, is your passion, were you trying to talk about where you're at now, or has that migrated to now wanting to amplify other people's voices?
No, my blog is essentially just to share stories, because I understand that, especially let's say if you're a young entrepreneur who's trying to open a business, and maybe previous to coming into C, I used to model. So, and because a lot of the models used to complain, hey, I X, Y, and Z photographer wouldn't work with me because I'm not feature, or I'm not like, I'm not like attached to a very high public magazines or things like that. So I opened my blog essentially just to share stories. So that way, when you're featured in my blog, you can go to somebody to be like, hey, I was featured in Easy Lexi. Now give me that opportunity so I can scale up my business. And this is like a highlight. One of the successful story that I actually got recently, there's a girl that I interviewed about 2 years ago in Kenya. And she came back to me and she's like, as a result of that feature, she actually got a grant to start up her own company. And now she have her own clothing line. And the government of Kenya was able to give her funding because of that feature. So, and also just because of understanding the power of media is very important, especially being a Black person. all the time media is telling our stories, but there's no control of how we wanted to tell our story. So through my blog, I wanted you
Yep.
to be able to come there to share your story from your own perspective. It's not edit, it's just for your own voice. And that's essentially what was the main idea, is that I asked you the questions and you answered from your own voice and your own perspective. And now we gone from just being a written portion to actually having like a video cast, and also doing a podcast version of that. And as a result of that, I have tapped into like countries in 7 countries in Africa, in India. I also did like Australia cover. So it has grown since that 10 people that used to, view my channel when I first started. And as a result of that, I also got monetized through YouTube, through Spotify and things like that. And now since I have learned all the skills, I decided, you know what, maybe it's time for me to also share that knowledge and not just keep it to myself. So I came back to see during the pandemic to learn how to make my business properly. And they had this program called Corex. And through the Corex, I was able to meet with mentors. I was able to meet with other like-minded entrepreneurs. And they taught us how to do our taxes, how to register our names, and how to also kind of launch a business properly. And through that experience, I was able to also get away and actually go and actually launch my course. And now I teach some of these courses at George Brown College, and I also teach in South
Wow.
Sudan. Yeah.
That's amazing. To those again watching, not listening, we just put your blog on the screen for a little bit there, and some of the different sections of it. When you scroll down to the bottom, you've really been featured and involved with a lot of radio stations, organizations, it looked like even universities. So
Yeah.
your blog has definitely got out there. Congrats on that.
Nice to see.
Yeah, no, it is great to see.
Yes.
Well, it's absolutely incredible to hear of organizations doing like this, and I hope that people listening, no matter where they are inspired to either learn more, participate, give Black youth opportunities. But also, I do think that more organizations, I hope organizations out in the East Coast reach out and want to adopt the model as well, just because I think that there's definitely a lack of, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, there's a lack of a lot of what Nancy just discussed, like financial literacy, how to build a business, mentorship opportunities, I think, that are out there. I know that Tribe Network out in Halifax is doing a lot of great, startup mentorship and opportunities for Black organizations, but it's one of the few that I can think of that's doing it, at least in the 4 Atlantic provinces in the East Coast, because I even think back to just a year and a half ago when we founded Black Atlantic as a business, and having, a lot of the same questions as well around, or at least for me, Clinton, seasoned business owner, but I was like, how do you register a name? How do you become incorporated? How do you do any of these things? And it's definitely not easy without some guidance, especially as, coming from a family with no financial literacy, being in systems as well. Like, it's just so, it's so tough to navigate on your own. And it's not something that's taught in school for any person, regardless of color, privilege, anything. They really don't teach like basic business foundation unless you study business in university, from my understanding. So that's amazing. And right now, for anyone looking, Clinton's pulled up Outsider Genre as well. Is it .co or is it .com?
.co.
It is
.co.
Okay.
And I have my dark mode on, just for anyone watching as well. You're seeing the dark version of the website, so it probably look a little bit different on your computers. But yeah, no, I always love checking this out during the recording. And no, Nancy, like, we really connect with that as well. Another reason Hillary was saying, like, we started a Black Atlantic was because out here on the East Coast, Black voices weren't being represented. There was no platform, there was no outlet to have them uplifted. That has changed a bit over the years through work that we've done. But, the media only ever focused on Black stories when it had to do with trauma or pain or mining our pain to interview us about some kind of catastrophe that took place. Otherwise, we weren't in the media. So that's one of our goals, to continue that work out here. I'm going to pivot for a quick second and just ask, since we are primarily an Atlantic-based show, and you did mention eventually expanding into Halifax, Agapi, hopefully we've got you back now.
I'm back.
Have there been any talks? Has there been any? I really respect what you said about just not moving into a community and saying like, "Hey, we're here," but sort of understanding the city, which will definitely serve you well in a community like Halifax. But have there been any conversations? Is there a projected 5 or 10 year plan to coming out east? We think what you do is really amazing, and yeah, I'd just like to know about the actual future plans for the East Coast.
Yeah, so I actually had the privilege of doing a Nova Scotia study tour this summer. And so I was able to go from Halifax all the way down to why is that
St. John,
to,
Moncton,
yeah,
Prince
I
Edward Island.
went to and I also went to it's a very beautiful island,
Yeah, Prince Edward Island?
Breton, Cape
Okay,
Cape
Breton
Breton.
Island.
Oh, okay. That's
I'm
okay.
so sorry,
You get a
Breton
pass. You get a
folks.
pass. You're at the
How
airport.
could
There's a
I?
lot going on. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it.
Yeah, so Cape Breton Island, all the way down to Cape Breton Island. And so I
Okay.
mean, before we go into any community, we have to have some understanding of it and like who the players are and what. And Black folks are facing such different challenges over there. The labor market looks very different compared to the East Coast. And so um, we have done like our preliminary, just like trying to understand, you know, what the challenges might be. At the end of the day, we're going to rely on folks who know their communities well, and just looking at who the players are there. We have met with the mayor of Halifax office to talk about the work that we're doing and how we can kind of support the work that's happening there. The unemployment rate in Halifax specifically for Black and male women and men are horrendous. Like it's just not
Mhm.
something our community should be okay with. And I think that people need to be held accountable to that. And resources need to get pumped in like a meaningful way. And so our hope is that we'll be able to secure some funding. Halifax would probably be the first. We've already expanded into Montreal, and so they would be the third city that we'd want to definitely get in as soon as possible. It seems there's a extreme need there that we can see in terms of the data. I think on the ground it tells a very different story. So we're looking, anyone who is listening and they are part of a grassroots or emerging organization and they're interested in the type of model that we've kind of discussed here. And really, one of the biggest things that we work on is strategic partnerships. So making sure that corporate Canada, government, and us as community are at the table and we're all mutually benefiting. I think it's important for our community to know that, you know, as nonprofits, for instance, and registered charities, you know, government makes promises and then we fulfill them. You know, like that's how this thing works. And when it comes to our community, we are government's constituents, and we need to hold folks accountable for where uh, our tax dollars are going. And it means that if that means that we need to apply pressure to ensure that, you know, they don't know, they don't have the answers. We have the answers. And it's just how are we now going to illustrate that and create opportunities for ourselves to empower our own communities and work alongside each other. And so if you are a Black led, Black focused, and Black serving organization and you're listening and you want to connect, please reach out to us. You can visit us at ccenter.org or ctoronto.org. We really want to be able to work alongside you. This work is not an overnight thing. Like building community takes time and it takes strategic planning. And, you know, we're in it for the long haul. And so much like our programs, we often tell like donors and sponsors that this work takes time and resources, and we can't skip on either. So I think the same goes for as we expand across the country. We want to make methodical partnerships where we're ready, they're ready, and we really understand the impact that we're trying to make on our community. And so I think for anyone that's listening and that sounds like something they might be interested in, our plan is to get in there in the next 3 years. We have brought to the attention to the federal government the need for this, and we're looking to, you know, push government to make a move, because if we can't continue to talk about labor gaps and how we need to fill them, if there are untapped resources within our country that need to be that could help right now, like today.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying the data and the story on the ground in Halifax is that the unemployment rate is out of control, and that really speaks to what our understanding is. Because the more you learn about Halifax and its history and on the race relations and the racial tensions, I mean, Halifax was very, very much so a city that was designed with almost a conscious intention to keep Black people away from opportunity, away from education, away from easy access to employment, and even like away from accessible public transit and stuff like that. Like they're really Africville aside, if you know that story, they've really been pushed out intentionally, discriminated against in a really harsh way, in which you still see the resonance of that every day, just anytime you're in the city. Um,
I did
so
a
yeah,
when when I did that study tour this summer. I did it with folks from across the Commonwealth. So there were folks from African countries, from Australia, etc. So there were 15 of us, and there were 13 from 13 different countries. There were probably about 2 or 3 Canadians that were in my group. And to be honest, like I felt so ashamed, like going through that study tour. I feel like it was supposed to be empowering, and like as Canadians, we're supposed to be like, look at how beautiful our country is. And I was so ashamed to be Canadian going through that tour. And I hate to say that, but I just the systemic racism that took place
it
and
is what
how
it is.
we are just like, but look how beautiful it is, and now we have this beautiful golf course, and it's just like and then it's like, oh well, what was here before, and did you displace anyone? It's just like, well, yeah, a little, but look how pretty it is. It's just like and luckily, I was with a group of folks who were woke enough to be like, this is not okay. But I felt very, very, very ashamed to be Canadian. And I feel like as Black Canadians across the country, not a lot of people know the stories that took place in Halifax. And I think that the more we educate ourselves, the more I left with a great sense of enragement. If I'm being quite honest, I left that study tour very enraged and very ready to do
Yeah,
more work. And so I feel like, not that I want to instill enragement in all of us, but I think as Black Canadians, we need to not be okay with how things are going down in.
yeah. Halifax again has like one of the longest histories of Black people in Canada, and like you alluded to in the beginning of this call, the term Black is so diverse and spans across so many different countries and cultures, beliefs, religions, even languages. But here we all are in this country called Canada, and we're all Black together. It's kind of like the culture that was created. um, but yeah, lots of work to be done. We have a few minutes left. Nancy, do you have any final thoughts, closing thoughts, things you really want listeners to have heard or know about by the end of this call episode? Nancy, can you hear us? I don't think Nancy can hear us at the moment. Mike, can you hear us? Same question for you.
No, I can only
Before
hear a part of it.
Okay,
It's
can you
left.
hear me now? I know you're
Can you
having
hear me,
some
guys?
connection issues. We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, I think we have a lag once again. So while we're getting that worked out, I'll just move on to Mike. Mike, is there anything that you, before we wrap up, that you feel that is important to get across to listeners? Like this episode, I know you do a lot of interviews. I think I heard, but this episode will be much more accessible to people on the East Coast and on YouTube just for the course of time.
Yeah, just it's an amazing movement that we have going on. And shout out to the East Coast. I'm actually from Calgary, so you have a Calgarian out here doing it.
Hey,
And I just want every youth to know that Black youth can.
Black Youth Can. Beautiful. Agapi, same question for you. Unfortunately, it seems like we've lost Nancy, and she's doing her best to get back in here. But any closing thoughts or feelings? Anything you really want to leave our listenership with?
Yeah. I think that Nancy and Mike are just perfect examples of, just dynamic young people. There's so much more where they came from. And so I really think that everyone kind of watching and listening, I really hope that they've been an inspiration to connect and see if there's, a cousin, a neighbor, whoever um, that you think could use a community like this to connect them. And if it's not at CEE, some type of organization that can support young people in getting where they would like to be, because I think otherwise, it might be a missed opportunity for us not to be able to experience a Mike or a Nancy.
True. Nancy, can you hear us?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
It's picking me out.
That's okay. You're fighting. You're resilient. You're back. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything you really would like our listenership to hear or take away from this podcast today?
Yeah, definitely. For me, one thing I always say for any youth that in Toronto or anywhere in Canada that are interested in either kickstart their career or start their their profession in any of these high techs, definitely go to CEE, because CEE changed my life. I'm not even joking. But that's because they offer me not only the scholarship but also the mentors, the friendship. There's still some people that I've went to classes with. I'm still good close friends with, and one of them is actually now working for me. And this is just some of the opportunities that you're going to be getting at CEE. Will see your potential. CEE will guide you through the whole process, and CEE is not only there to just kind of have you as a number in the roster, but it's going to be with you throughout the journey. So that is something that I really love about it, and I'm always going to advocate for CEE. And for those youth who wanted to be a part of it, definitely take that chance and the leap of faith.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you all so much for sharing your story and telling us about more about the organization. Agape, I completely understand why you won that Harry Jerome Award. I think that this work is absolutely incredible. And I'm so excited to see Nancy and Mike where your careers take you. I hope that, this podcast can do for you some of the work that you've been doing for other people. We always hope to, I think all Black people have it ingrained in ourselves that we want to build legacy and do more for everyone else. And so I hope that anyone listening can either partner by, adopting the model or reaching out in any way. And honestly, I will champion this from Toronto since I'm actually here, doing as much as I can to share the amazing work that you guys are doing. I thought that all of your stories were so inspirational, and I sincerely mean that my favorite thing about this podcast is learning about these amazing organizations, but I always also feel that I wish New Brunswick would have had something like this. I wish my youth would have had something like this. But that means that you're doing the right work and doing things that are so important to people who do need this type of stuff. I'm just inspired as usual at the end of our podcast, Clinton. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add.
Nope, just a thank you once again for enlightening our listeners and sharing your organization. This is something I don't want to discredit. There are organizations in Atlantic Canada that do work similar to yours, although maybe not exactly what you do. I definitely encourage you, if you haven't already, to connect with Tribe Network out of Halifax, Nova Scotia. But no, just want to thank you for being on the show. Check out neeceelexy.com. That's neeceelexy.com. And then outsidergenre.co, just spelled the way that you'd imagine. And then, of course, where did it go? The CEE Center, just for our audio listeners, CEE Center, CEECENTRE.org. Thank you again for being on the show. We're going to follow all you guys and keep in touch. And I think we'll take it out here with a little outro.